with criminal justice in this country. You know, when people who have, you know, admitted murderers can walk free, and then everyone is thinking that someone who's committed a low level, just above a misdemeanor offense deserves 5 months in jail. You know, we need to look at the sentencing disparities.
Fair enough. All right, Tamara Walker, thank you again so much for being with me tonight. Truly appreciate it. I'm going to let you go now. Best of luck on all your motions. You can find her at defendchicago.com. I'm Michael Ayala. It's been a pleasure being with you tonight. Coming up next in Closing Arguments, Vinnie Politan takes a look at the biggest moments from today's opening statements of the Lorenzen Wright murder trial. Keep it right here on Court TV.
and were diagnosed with advanced stages of ovarian cancer or metastatic ovarian cancer that moved to other organs within the last 10 years, don't wait. Call right now.
In Memphis, Tennessee, day one of Billy Ray Turner's murder trial. Turner accused of killing former NBA star Lorenzen Wright. Opening statements today and the testimony of Lorenzen's mother, who has waited 12 years for this trial.
Through those years of being married to Shara and having the kids, did Lorenzen stay in touch with you?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. All the time.
It seems like you may have been his #1 fan. Did you stay his #1 fan for all
Till the
that?
day he died, still is. Yes, sir.
In Chicago, Illinois, actor Jussie Smollett serving time for his hate crime hoax conviction, trying to get released after an alleged threat to sodomize Smollett with a broom handle. We have the details.
I am not suicidal, and if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself, and you must all know that.
On the docket tonight in Nashville, Tennessee, a barroom confrontation spills out into the streets and chaos erupts. 3 men get stabbed, 2 die, and now Michael Mosley is charged with the murders. Plus, a judge questions an attorney in court concerning her sobriety. When she refuses a test, the judge has her taken away. Tonight's 13th juror question: how should a judge handle a lawyer suspected to be under the influence? Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. You've heard this cliche many, many times. The wheels of justice turn very slowly. And when you are talking about a murder case and you're talking about the family members of the victim, when those words are spoken, it is extra painful for those wheels of justice turning slowly through the investigation and into the prosecution of the person allegedly responsible for the murder of your father, your mother, your son, your daughter, your brother, your sister, your cousin, whoever it is. It is torturous. You've seen it firsthand here on Court TV. Just recently in the popcorn movie murder trial, Nicole Olson was wearing this on her shoulders for years. She waited 8 years before that trial started. Curtis Reeves, the man who shot and killed her husband, was able to litigate his way into an incredible delay. And that took a toll on her. I spoke to her before the trial, a year before the trial, and it was still part of her life, day in and day out, waiting for a chance for justice because that's all was left. Her husband was never coming back. The father of their child was never coming back. He was dead. She was holding on to the hope for justice. We know how that turned out. It was awful for her. Awful, incredibly painful. But the waiting is the salt in the wound for these family members. I want to tell you about another family member tonight, the mother of a murder victim. She's been waiting 12 years. 12 years since her son was murdered, waiting through years of investigation, trying to figure out who was responsible. And then from that point, waiting for the trial. It took 12 years. Could you imagine? You know, we often say it's unimaginable the pain that these families suffer. I don't necessarily agree with that. I've spoken to enough of them, and I think you've heard enough of the family members through the years, that it is imaginable, the torture that they go through, waiting for that day to come. Well, that day happened today for Deborah Marion. She was able to testify in day one of the trial for the murder of her son, Lorenzen Wright, former NBA star. This is a guy who lived an incredible life, incredible talent. I'm so jealous. Living the dream in the NBA, have like a 13-year career. That's a long career in professional sports, long career. And his mom loved him like every mom loves their child, almost all. We come across too many here that don't, right? But the way a mother loves a son and loves a child. And that was taken from her. He's never coming back. And now 12 years later, finally, she gets a day in court. And this is her moment. And I can't understate to you how important this moment is for her and other family members in similar situations. As I said, Lorenzen's not coming back. And that's a tough fact to deal with. So what is she holding on to? A sense of someone will be held responsible, and the people who are responsible will pay the price, and the truth will come out in the trial. The truth will come out. That's what they want the most, is the truth. And that's what trials are supposed to be. Today was day one. Billy Ray Turner on trial for the murder of Lorenzen Wright. The allegation is he had some help as well. Today, opening statements. I want to play you something first, before we get to those opening statements, for you to really understand the pain that this woman has gone through, this mother. I want to show you something that happened in 2017. So this is going back. She had to wait another 5 years after this. But how painful it was for her and how emotional it was for her to be in the courtroom with the man accused of the murder of her son. Take a look.
You have any questions, sir? No. Ms. Turner, you may step back in the back. Ms. Williams will come talk to you.
How could you have murdered my son? That's what I need to know. Just how?
Ms. Wright, good morning.
How you doing?
Ms. Wright, I understand your pain. I understand the ordeal that you've gone through for the last 7 years. What brought me back to Memphis, Ms. Wright, because somebody killed my father. So I understand what you're going through. But I cannot allow you, Ms. Wright, or anyone else to react that way in court.
Well, I'm ready to go anywhere. I just what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am. And you are welcome to be back in court next Tuesday on the 12th of December. But you cannot disrupt the courtroom, Ms. Wright.
I'm not going to disrupt. I told him what I want him to know. Now,
This is something that will be going on for a long time. This case is not going to be resolved anytime soon. That goes to 7 long years for you, almost 7.5 years. But I'm going to ask you to take allow Mr. Hagerman, who's representing the state on this case, to do his job. Allow this case to run through its normal course of business through the criminal justice system. I want to offer you and your family my personal condolences for your loss. But you're not doing a member of your son good. And you're not helping your son. You're not helping the administration of justice by engaging in that sort of an outburst.
That was 5 years ago. She waited 7 years for that moment and now has had to wait another 5 years to get to trial. But it happened today. Let me take you inside the courtroom for the opening statements.
Shara Wright's not a professional killer. This is not something she does. She doesn't have a phone directory of hitmen. No. She had to reach out to people that she trusted or that were indebted to her or that, what did we talk about yesterday? Sketchy uncle, maybe with some criminal past. She had to reach out to people like that to get this thing planned, done, and covered up. Two people in particular. And the first, who I am talking about now, is Billy Turner. Billy Turner was Shara Wright's friend. Billy Turner was Shara Wright's yard man. Billy Turner was Shara Wright's romantic, secret interest. Billy Turner was somebody that Shara Wright could trust, manipulate, and use.
Listen to what a person who a few days after he was convicted of killing his girlfriend goes in and tells detectives that I can solve this. And then you're going to also have to listen to the fact that as he's telling his story, they buy it hook, line, and sinker, and they write him a contract, and they do all of this stuff before they pull Facebook records between Sheriff and Jimmy. Let me be clear on this, because I don't want it to come out that I'm confusing anybody or anything. Before you get concentrated Facebook messages between Sheriff and Jimmy, and you see those messages, and you can take a third grader and figure what they're talking about. And guess whose name ain't no damn where near it? Billy. Billy's got his own life that he's living. Billy would loan his car to any of y'all if somebody that he knew vouched for you. They don't know nothing about little Jimmy other than Jimmy comes to the house one day while he's over there and Sheriff's talking about Jimmy needs a car. He doesn't have a car, but he has these DJ gigs. And you'll see Billy demanding his car back because it took a little long. That's all. But more importantly, you'll hear the people that will come in and talk about what Billy was doing to a person that evening. What he was doing, when I say to a person, I mean 3 or 4 witnesses that will tell you that on the evening of July 18, 2010, Billy was here. Billy was doing XYZ. Billy did this during the evening. You'll see pictures of Billy during that evening. That's God's grace. Because ain't nobody sitting up trying to plan an alibi.
Here's my concern after opening statements. Number one, not an easy case for prosecutors, and I just hope that Deborah Marion, Lorenzen's mom, has been prepared for a very unpredictable outcome here, because anything can happen. We see it time after time here on Court TV. So I just hope emotionally she's ready to take this journey through this trial, because you never know what the outcome is going to be. Let me bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Page, who's joining us live tonight from Memphis, Tennessee. Chanley, great to see you. Interesting opening statements. Looks like we have 2 completely different stories. It looks like the defense is pointing the finger in the obvious places, the ex-wife and the star witness / convicted murderer in another case. But I understand there was a 911 call that was played today in court. What can you tell us about that?
You know, Vinnie, we cover trials all over the country. We hear a lot of 911 calls. This one is different, and it made a resounding effect inside the courtroom. It was played during opening statements. It was played again during the detective's testimony this afternoon. The final words of the victim himself, Lorenzen Wright, before a barrage of gunfire. It's a powerful moment. The family reacted. Let's watch.
Georgia 911, where's your emergency? Hello? 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 Oh, I have nothing but gunshots.
12 minutes after. The call is to Germantown 911. You'll hear 2 male voices. The first male voice is the caller, Lorenzen Wright. The second male voice is the killer. And then you'll hear gunshot after gunshot after gunshot. Describe generally what we hear on that call.
You hear Lorenzen kind of say, oh, and you hear some gunshots, and then you hear somebody say something. It's been interpreted different by different people that listen to it, but it almost sounds like, to me, get them, and then more gunshots, and then the phone hangs.
A male voice?
Correct.
Lorenzen's voice, a male voice, and then whatever was said, like you said, it's just hard to make it out.
Correct.
Another male voice.
It sounds like another male voice.
Right. And numerous gunshots.
Correct.
Vinnie, this 911 call, so important to this case and really compounding the tragedy of this case. That was a call placed at 12:12 a.m., July 19th, 2010. The dispatcher didn't do anything. The authorities didn't respond to this barrage of gunfire. The prosecution wanting to make clear that because of that delay, they didn't discover this call until about 9 days later, that Lorenzen had placed this on his cell phone, the last call that he made, that in that time, the co-conspirators were allegedly able to clean up the scene, go back and cut the barbed wire to get rid of evidence, to find one of the murder weapons. And so that was big and revealing in the opening and, of course, in the evidence today as the jury was taken back to the crime scene. But I have to mention, every time this 911 call was played, the family in the gallery of Lorenzen Wright reacted emotionally. In fact, the mother, Deborah Marion, ran out of the courtroom this afternoon in a very noticeable way. The judge even took a pause before playing this 911 call, and the jury noticed as well. It's just high emotions inside this courtroom, and again, have been building up for nearly 12 years, Vinnie. And I want to bring up one more revelation this afternoon with the detective on the stand. The prosecution trying to establish this communication between Shira Wright and Billy Ray Turner with newly revealed text messages and communications between the two. So before that 911 call, in fact, 25 minutes before this 911 call is placed by Lorenzen Wright, we have Shira Wright texting Billy Ray Turner in those moments saying, "I'm gonna need my commission. I may want you to bring your business cards in the AM before you fly out. You owe me, boy." So again, piece by piece, it's only day one, Vinnie, but this prosecution building a case against Billy Ray Turner.
12 years in the making. I understand you had an opportunity to speak with Lorenzen's mom, Deborah. What did she have to say?
Clearly so affected still by the loss of her son, Lorenzen. She had some tears in her eyes as she explained to me what she missed most about him, his vibrant smile. Of all of her children, he was the one with the perfect teeth, she said. What a character she is, Vinnie. And I asked her, of course, about what she thought of the prosecution's evidence against Shira, against Billy Ray Turner. She believes, even though Shira Wright, her former daughter-in-law, pled guilty to facilitation of murder, she played a more direct role. Let's listen. Do you think Shira was one of the ones with the handgun that shot Lorenzen too?
Yes, the bullet in his face. I'll say that till the day I die. To the day I die. His face shot was hers.
Vinnie, we learned today more than one different type of caliber handgun used in this case found at the crime scene. So again, she believes that Shira actually wielded one of those handguns and shot Lorenzen in the face. She will always believe that. She hopes, though, that Billy Ray Turner, who had been, in her view, manipulated by Shira Wright, spends the rest of his life behind bars because she herself is doing a life sentence without her son, Lorenzen. I must mention also in the gallery, her daughter, her youngest son there, who also plays basketball in college. They were in the courtroom without her. She left before graphic crime scene photos. I spoke with her daughter and Lorenzen's sister and brother. They said that was the toughest part of the day, Vinnie, because they never seen any of those crime scene photos, and so they really left disheartened.
Oh, all right. Chanley Painter, great reporting tonight in Memphis, Tennessee. The trial continues tomorrow. Thank you, Chanley. Let's bring in our think tank tonight. Joining me in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor, law professor at Texas Southern University, Michael Sterling. In Palm Springs, California, trial attorney Ann Bremner. And in West Palm Beach, Florida, former police lieutenant and trial attorney Rick King. Great to see everyone tonight. Michael Sterling, former prosecutor. I am so concerned about Lorenzen's mom. She has her family around her. I think that's great. I just hope that everyone is prepared for a very unpredictable ending. We don't know how these things end.
Not only an unpredictable ending, Vinnie, but an unpredictable trial, right? You never know what's going to come out, the things that are going to be said, the things that you're going to see. You know, I tried a murder case at the right before Christmas at the end of last year, and things came out that just were completely unexpected. They had to call about 10, DeKalb County police security guards in when the verdict was read, because people were so concerned for both the safety of myself and the safety of the defendant. But you just never know how these things are going to end. And, you know, lawyers are doing their job, right? Prosecutors and defense attorneys are just trying to do their job. They're not involved in the criminal aspect of the case, but a lot of times people subscribe to defense attorneys, their clients' actions. And so, you know, my hope is that they understand, and the judge has explained to them the administration of justice to make sure that you preserve the record, and that they understand that, you know, you're not doing anybody any good if you're going to have those type of outbursts.
All right, we're running a little long here in our first segment, but I think we had to. So Ann Bremner, Rick King, stand by. When we come back, I've got some questions for you about Jussie Smollett. You know, he thought the trial was over, he thought the case was over. He's trying to get out of jail already. I mean, it's been like a couple days, and he's trying to get out. Alleged threats. We'll get to the bottom of it. Don't go anywhere.
Download the app today.
I am not suicidal.
Stop laughing about facts.
I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time ago.
All right, that was Jussie Smollett going to the Cook County Jail after he was sentenced on Thursday. And now already here we are, and he's trying to get out. There's a lot of moving parts right now. That's why I've got to bring in Court TV crime and justice reporter Joy Lim Nakrin, who is with us here. Okay, so his attorney's filing some sort of an emergency motion trying to get him out?
Yeah, they're trying to get him out of jail and essentially saying that he's not safe there. This is primarily based on some claims by his family that they received a really disturbing phone call in graphic detail, essentially threatening to sodomize Jussie Smollett. Yeah, I mean, it even referenced a case in New York City where a prisoner was sodomized with a broomstick in the 90s by a police officer, and really chilling. And I actually listened to that call, but we don't play that sort of really disturbing graphic content here on Court TV. But I will just share. I mean, there was like an evil laugh. It was very, very chilling, and it went into a lot of detail with expletives about what the plans were for Jussie and what the hope was that Jussie would suffer.
Right. I would be alarmed too, but who received the call? What was the nature of the call?
Yeah, so
how would someone have a phone number to call?
Right, so this was actually, great question, a phone number listed as an emergency contact for Jussie on the county paperwork. And it was one of the
jail.
That's right, and one of the siblings received the phone call. So, it's interesting. We have heard Jussie's brother being very active on social media, raising concerns about Jussie's safety, his mental health. He, a few days ago, was on social media basically telling the world that, his brother is in a psych ward, that the conditions are awful. And then just yesterday, posted that Jussie is now out of the psych ward, thanking supporters for rallying around him and essentially accomplishing that for Jussie. And with that post, which, by the way, the hashtag was Free Jussie, he also posted a phone number, which I called, and it goes to the Department of Corrections for Cook County. And that is what supporters were advised in this post to call if they wanted to reach out and check in on Jussie. In fact, we actually have the video from that Instagram post. Let's listen.
Day 5 update on Jussie. So I just got to see him. Just wanted to give y'all an update on his status. Thank you so much for the support with all the hashtag Free Jussie. It's working. He's now been moved to a new jail cell out of a psych ward that has a bed. Before he was sleeping on a restraint bed, and now he's been moved to a jail cell that actually has a bed.
Yeah, so, is he in the psych ward? Is he not in the psych ward? That's actually something that we at Court TV asked Tamara Walker, who is Jussie's attorney, and she didn't want to disclose his location because of the safety concerns.
All right, getting back to that phone call, so if someone makes a threat like that, you want to figure out who made the call. Was there any indication of who made the call? Was there caller ID? Has law enforcement gotten their hands on the call? Have they tried to track down who this person is making this alleged threat?
Yeah, so these are great questions, right? And I think you raised the concern initially before we actually went on air. Question, I should say. How is it that TMZ had the video and yet it wasn't clear at that particular time when we were discussing prepping for the show whether law enforcement had the video? So we asked Tamara Walker, the attorney, does law enforcement have this video? Are they looking into that? And she said, we're working with authorities essentially to, turn over the evidence and for them to look into it. But the last statement that we got from Cook County, in fact, if we could share part of that. We prepared this statement, the graphics for it. Regarding reports of threatening, hateful, and racist calls received by the family, the Sheriff's Office strongly urges the family to report these alleged calls to local law enforcement. As with all individuals in custody, the safety and security of Mr. Smollett is the Sheriff's Office primary concern. That was yesterday, okay? They didn't say the family has reported this to us. We're looking into it.
Right, but TMZ had it before the sheriff. That's interesting.
Interesting.
Interesting. Okay, and final question. One of his co-stars showing a lot of support online for Jesse?
Yeah, and you know, this is in line with what we saw during sentencing, where there were celebrities and high-profile individuals giving statements on behalf of Jesse, as there were pleas for, you know, a lighter sentence and leniency. But Taraji P. Henson, one of his Empire co-stars, posted on Instagram, "I'm not here to debate you on his innocence, but we can agree that the punishment does not fit the crime. Emmett Till was brutally beat and ultimately murdered because of a lie, and none of the people involved with his demise spent 1 day in jail, even after Carolyn Bryant admitted that her claims were false. No one was hurt or killed during Jesse's ordeal. He's already lost everything, everything. To me, as an artist, not being able to create that in itself is punishment enough. He can't get a job. No one in Hollywood will hire him. And again, as an artist who loves to create, that is prison. My prayer is that he's freed and put on house arrest and probation, because in this case, that would seem fair. Please, hashtag free Jesse."
Joy, great information, great reporting. Thank you so much. Let's bring back in our think tank. Michael Sterling, Ann Bremner, Rick King, patiently standing by tonight. Had to get to a lot of information here. Ann Bremner, let me start with you. This phone call, this threatening phone call, this vile phone call received by the brother. What are your thoughts about that? And the only reason I ask that is the basis of the whole case was a hoax. I can't imagine that this phone call would be fake. I'm wondering why we're not sending it to authorities and getting and investigating and tracking down the person who made the call.
I mean, exactly. I mean, another hoax. I mean, would we be surprised in this case of a major hoax that was perpetrated by the defendant in this case, and Good Morning America, and other interviews, and in front of a jury and everything else? I was thinking to myself, you know, life doesn't imitate art; it imitates bad TV sometimes. I mean, what is this? I mean, the case is over. I mean, we're a society of laws, not men or women, or social media. Are they going to retry this whole case on social media and then inject into this threats that they're not going to report to law enforcement? I think it's a hoax.
Rick, what does your gut tell you about this call? I mean, it's a vile, vile threat.
Well, I would hate to think that this is a hoax. And so because of the family of Jesse Smollett and his friends and the people that care about him, I don't want to come off as insensitive to what might be a legitimate threat for him. And so, I think that the sheriff's office has a responsibility, care, custody, and control. They have a responsibility to look out for his well-being and make sure that he is kept in a manner with which he is safe from, as best they can. And they make provisions for celebrities and people who are ultimately maybe more vulnerable. I'm not going to pass judgment as to whether it's a hoax or not. I just say that what we should do as a society, we should want to do better. I don't know that putting Jesse Smollett in jail for 5 months changes the needle on how we're surviving as a society.
Michael, if in fact this is a legitimate threat, the phone number was given to the jail. This would implicate someone perhaps in the administration over at Cook County Jail, but they haven't received the phone call yet. What would you advise them to do if Jesse's brother receives this call? They may be suspicious of the sheriff's office. I don't know. I don't know why they haven't turned it over immediately. But what are your thoughts about how to proceed to get to the truth here?
Well, Vinnie, it's unfortunate that as a former federal prosecutor in this very city, that I've got some questions about Chicago Police Department and the Cook County Sheriff's Office. Operation Gray Shovel unveiled in the 80s in the office I worked in. Judges, police officers, people who were taking bribes. The Chicago Police Department pushed back when Jody Weiss was appointed as the chief of police as an FBI agent because they didn't want him holding police officers who did wrongful conduct accountable. We prosecuted John Byrd, the police officer who tortured black suspects in a confession. So you cannot be surprised that people have some questions or some hesitation in turning something over to the Chicago Police Department, to the Cook Cook County Sheriff's Office because there is a history of corruption there.
So
if I
get that, Michael, but how do you
advise them to go to the feds?
To the feds, okay.
Yeah, I would advise them to go to the feds. Yeah, I would advise them to go to the United States Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Georgia to report whatever they're seeing, because if there is some inside job with Cook County Sheriff's Office or Chicago Police Department, then those the United States Attorney's Office will uncover it, and I believe that sincerely.
Yeah, and
the implication is that every person in the jail would have to be involved in that. I actually do believe that that's a stretch. I understand
I don't know if everybody would have to be involved, Rick. You don't have to have everybody.
You need
involved.
a lot of people.
Some bad actors.
You need a lot of people.
Some bad actors. Well, Operation Gray Shovel, multiple judges taking bribes, multiple prosecutors taking bribes. Like, it happens. This is Chicago.
We shall.
It's 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
22 years ago almost, right?
We shall see. This is an unbelievable story, and it's still developing. I'm sure there'll be more news tomorrow. Our think tank with us the whole hour, still ahead. On the docket tonight in Nashville, Tennessee, a barroom confrontation spills out into the streets and chaos erupts. 3 men get stabbed, 2 die, and now Michael Mosley is charged with the murders. Plus, a judge questions an attorney in court concerning her sobriety. When she refuses a test, the judge has her taken away. Tonight's 13th juror question: how should the judge handle a lawyer suspected to be under the influence? On the docket tonight, a case out of Nashville, Tennessee. A bar fight spills into the streets and 2 men are stabbed through the heart. Michael Ayala has more.
Police say this video from inside the Dogwood Bar in Nashville, Tennessee, shows the beginning of an encounter that would end with 2 people dead and a 3rd man wounded. According to investigators, a fight over a woman spilled out of the bar and onto the street, where Clayton Beathard, 22, and Paul Trapini, 21 years old, were stabbed to death.
I think it was such a shock to everybody that this could actually happen.
These were good boys, and they were defending their friend.
Clayton Beathard was a standout college athlete and played most recently for Long Island University. His coach tweeted, "His love of life, people, especially his teammates, was a shining light on our program." Clayton's brother, C.J. Beathard, a backup quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, took to his Instagram account to write, "Clay has the biggest heart of anyone that I have ever known." Paul Trapini III was captain of the high school football team. He attended Rhodes College in Memphis and was exploring law school before he died. The accused killer is Michael Mosley, and he's been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder.
There is absolutely nothing that Clayton Beathard and Paul Trapini and AJ did to bring this on themselves.
Prosecutors say Mosley has a criminal history that includes this 2017 assault captured on surveillance video. Police say Mosley went into this Nashville Walmart looking for someone. When he found her, he knocked her to the floor and attacked her, kicking and punching the woman repeatedly. When customers started to approach, Mosley ran from the scene and out the front door. He was later arrested.
Somebody just hit me in the eye. So, I lost my sight and I was covering in it. He started throwing me and kicking me.
This is Molly Baker. She says he stabbed her in the eye with a key during the attack. Police suggest Mosley attacked her as payback. She and her husband are accused of murder in the shooting death of Mosley's stepbrother in 2016. Mosley was free on bond and facing criminal charges in connection with the attack when the fatal stabbings occurred. Mosley's defense attorney says his criminal past should not play a role in the murder case against him and believes video evidence will show his client was defending himself.
A person has a right to defend themselves if they think that they are in danger of serious bodily injury or death.
While Mosley remains in jail until his trial, friends and family members mourn their loss.
Lord, thank you for Paul and Clay.
And a survivor waits for justice.
All right, we have a motion hearing on March 17th. That is coming up this week. Then we've got a trial date, March 28th, Tennessee versus Michael Mosley. We'll keep you up to date right here on Closing Arguments. When we come back, an attorney inside a courtroom, the judge suspects that she might be under the influence. We'll show you what happened next.
Stanziano, I want to ask this question, man. Are you impaired today on something? Are you under the influence of narcotics here today?
No.
You oftentimes hear judges ask that question, but it's usually to a criminal defendant in a courtroom, not one of the attorneys. Unbelievable story out of Kentucky. Conroy Deluche from our affiliate WLEX has more for us tonight.
What was the other issue?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
On March 9th, with Judge Samuel Spalding presiding, court was set to begin in Greene County. But before the jury was brought into the circuit courtroom, Judge Spalding asked the attorney for the defendant, Bethany Stanziano, a question.
Stanziano, I want to ask this question, man. Are you impaired today on something? Are you under the influence of narcotics here today?
No, not, Your Honor.
The proceedings continued and a jury was brought into the courtroom. However, minutes later, when asked by a judge, Stanziano said she was not ready to proceed. After the judge asked why, this exchange occurred.
I'm trying to think. Yes, probably just a couple brief statements, but probably need to be put on the record.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hate to do this.
The judge and attorneys then left the jury, continuing discussions on another floor.
Okay, we're on the record, back on the record.
The attention turned away from the case to the state of Stanziano.
I can't focus because the pain in my feet and the right leg from the knee down is excruciating.
She maintained that she was not under the influence, but was on medications due to neurological issues. However, the judge said that her medical documents submitted before trial did not support the state of pain that she claimed. In a court order, Judge Spalding cited Stanziano's speech, demeanor, and appearance for asking for a drug test, which she eventually refused.
And you've assured me that you are clean and that these drug screens would be negative. Therefore, there should not be an issue with you taking it. And if you're not, ma'am, I'm going to have to take action here.
Your Honor, I would like to speak with my attorney.
Okay, she's remanded into custody.
1 minute later, sheriff's deputies pushed her wheelchair out of the courtroom. She was taken to the Taylor County Detention Center. 2 days later, on Friday, March 11th, the judge wrote a new order stating that he had been advised that Stanziano would comply with the drug screen order, and if she submitted a hair and urine sample for testing, she would immediately be released from jail. Officials at the detention center confirmed that Stanziano was, in fact, released that same day. In Greene County, Conroy Deluche, LEX 18 News.
Unbelievable. Posted on social media. Our 13th juror comment of the day comes from Ed, who says and asks, is it illegal? I don't know. Ethical problems, yes. Legal bar problems, yes. Well, this is one I didn't even know what should or shouldn't be done or could or couldn't be done. Let's bring back into Think Tank Michael Sterling and Bremner Rick King. And I'll start with you. Your thoughts about, is this even illegal?
For her to be under the influence in court?
Yes, yes, lawyering under the influence, LUI.
I don't know if that'd be an interesting crime, but the fact is the judge has the inherent contempt powers and the power to control his courtroom and to ensure that the defendant gets a fair trial by a lawyer who's not under the influence. So I think what he did was appropriate, and he exercised contempt by jailing her when she refused to take the test. What I'm wondering is, what were the results of the test? We don't even know. And I'm like, why? She's in a wheelchair. I mean, I feel sorry for her. On the other hand, I feel more sorry for her client if indeed that case is going to go forward with her impaired, as she appeared to be to the judge.
So I looked up the rules because I needed to know. I understand the obvious, direct criminal contempt allegation the judge made and his obvious need to control the judicial administration of his courtroom. I get that. But when you look at the rules don't provide that type of relief. What they say the judge is supposed to do is he's supposed to he can talk to that person's supervisor if they're a public defender. He can make a bar complaint. He could try to get the rules are actually more designed to get that person some help rather than to throw them in jail. So I don't know if that was the appropriate response at that time. Can he do it? Sure. Should he do it? Probably not.
Yeah, Vinnie, I think that outside of the contempt rules, which give the judge broad discretion over his courtroom, I don't think there's anything necessarily illegal about it. And I think that, trial judges have been a little harsher on this. Appeals judges who don't have to actually see the lawyers in front of them have been a little bit more lenient. For example, Robert Wayne Hosley, who was convicted and sentenced to death in Georgia, his attorney admitted to having a quart of vodka, the equivalent of 21 shots a night, before handling his death penalty trial. In Haney v. State, the trial lawyer in Alabama showed up so drunk that the judge sent them to jail to dry out and then continued the trial the next day. They were later sentenced to death. So the client was later sentenced to death. So, trial judges have tried to get some control over this. Lawyers, unfortunately, Vinnie, because of our profession, are almost 3 times more likely to consume alcohol or to fall victim to alcoholism because of the tremendous stress, as you can imagine, Vinnie. You know this, Rick knows this, Ann knows this. Because of everything we deal with on a day-to-day basis, unfortunately, lawyers have a much more higher susceptibility to falling victim of alcoholism than the general population.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons on the other side here, and I got out. You all are still trapped there, day to day. I'm on the other side, away from some of that stress. And the thing that surprised me here, and we have about 20 seconds or so, is that the judge said, take the test or go to jail. I was shocked about that. I can understand, oh, you're not going to take the test, all right, then we're going to do something here, but take the test or go to jail.
He meant business. I mean, basically that's what he did, and he put her in jail, and then she took the test. So mission accomplished, I guess. But yeah, very surprising.
All right.
That's where I have the problem.
I don't know a defense lawyer that's going to comply. Like, what defense lawyer do you know that's going to comply? Like, I don't know one.
True. Right.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we want sober attorneys representing defendants because everything is at stake. And at the other hand, we also want lawyers to get help if and when they need it, and it looks like that was needed here. What a great job tonight, Michael Sterling, Ann Bremner, and Rick King. Always great to have you on here. We appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll see you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, folks, when we come back, next hour, top of the hour, we got a story involving a little boy who is missing, and his name is Cody Bixby. His dad's locked up, but the child is still missing, and it's a story that hasn't got enough coverage. That's why we will continue to cover it right here on Closing Arguments.
Call or go online now.
In Hampton, Virginia, the continuing search for 4-year-old Cody Bixby. His father is locked up, and the community is looking for his son. Tonight, the latest in the investigation.
I believe that the number of people that have decided on their own to traipse about in the woods and dig through marshes and all these other things, God bless them.
In tonight's unsolved case file in Cleveland, Ohio, 16-year-old Beverly Jaros was home alone waiting for her friend to come over when she was strangled and stabbed 40 times. The brutal murder happened in late December back in 1964. Tonight, we take you back to the scene.
They have daughters of their own, and how do they look at their daughters and think about what they did to Beverly?
In Yonkers, New York, a brutal hate crime caught on video. Why was this man not already locked up? We break down the case with our own law enforcement experts. And in Seattle, Washington, officers respond to the scene of an active shooter. We take a closer look during crime time.
Don't do it! No! Down now! I'm gonna tase him.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks so much for joining us here on Closing Arguments. And in this hour of the show each night, we take a look at cases, many cases that are unsolved, cases where there's a search for justice, there's a search for a sense of an answer, and sometimes it's literally just the search for someone. And tonight we're going to start with a case that has not been getting the coverage that it needs and it deserves. And there are so many cases out there, unfortunately. This one struck a nerve with a lot of folks here at Court TV. It's about a little boy named Cody, just 4 years old, reported missing by his dad. But his dad's not out searching for him right now because dad is locked up for charges related to his son. Not his disappearance, but child neglect. And once you see a picture of this little boy, I don't know how anyone could neglect him. How could anyone neglect this little guy? I mean, super cute. He's at that age, 4, where you know, a little child is becoming like has that personality that's coming out, and they're becoming real people. It's amazing to watch, and how you could ignore that or neglect that is beyond me. But those are the charges against the father. Zach Dahlheimer from our great affiliate in Norfolk, Virginia, WTKR, has more tonight in the story and the search for Cody Bixby.
The emotional toll it's there.
Since day one.
It's been rough, mentally and physically.
Paige Fuller.
Rain, shine, cold, warm.
Has been searching.
When we're down here all day.
For 4-year-old Cody Bixby.
Anywhere that we get a tip that somebody thinks needs to be searched, we're there searching it.
Reported missing 2 weeks ago.
It's honestly changed me as a person. I feel like I'm a better person. It makes me not take what I have for granted. It's a 4-year-old out here missing. I personally don't have kids, but he's 4 years old.
Volunteer searchers like her in Mahogany Walden combing through different areas of the city, hoping to find any signs that could bring Cody home.
People have come today from as far as Gloucester and have said, it's just in my heart to help you guys search. We just want to make sure that we're being as thorough as possible. We're following all leads.
While staying positive.
Waking up every day with Cody on your mind, seeing his face, knowing that he's out there somewhere, knowing that he deserves to be at home.
I think that we all have to consider what we might be able to do that's helpful.
Hampton Police Chief Mark Talbot encouraging searchers to keep going.
I believe that the number of people that have decided on their own to traipse about in the woods and dig through marshes and all these other things, God bless them.
Meanwhile, Walden and others are getting the word out about a petition to create a new alert called the Cody Alert, an alert for missing children who don't qualify for an Amber Alert.
Another alert, we don't see how that would hurt. We feel that it would help.
Even to up to 2 or 3 days ago, people are still saying, oh, well, I didn't know he was missing. How can you live not even 5 miles from where it happened and you still don't know? But it has to be something out there that can alert these people.
They also hope more will join them to look for any clues.
Until Cody is found, you know, it doesn't matter how long it takes. We need to be out here as a community and looking for him.
I told you, you saw his face, right? I mean, and again, his dad's locked up for child neglect. How could you neglect or ignore that child? I don't know how you could. It makes no sense to me, but we cover stories here that don't make sense night after night, looking to make some sense of it and get some answers. The other part she was talking about, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we all carry these, right? And I get the Amber Alerts all the time on here. And you know, if you're on the road, you're in the passenger seat, you're able to look at it and see, okay, yeah, well, let's keep an eye out for that white sedan that they're looking for or whatever. I get it. But there's got to be a way for missing children also, that we should all be alerted, at least within a reasonable radius of where all this is happening. I mean, let's use the technology, folks. We all got this, right? We're watching these ridiculous I mean, you can just scroll for hours. You go in those rabbit holes with these ridiculous, meaningless videos. How about putting some meaning into this and setting up a system? So when a child like Cody goes missing, everybody knows. So everybody's eyes are open. Everybody's looking. All right. Let's bring in tonight's guests. Joining me in Chicago, Illinois, private investigator Erica Morse, and in Washington, D.C., tonight in the nation's capital. Don't know what he's up to down there, but retired police commander and host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King, is with us. Great to have you both here. Erica, before we get to Cody, what's happening right now in terms of alerting people? Is there a movement out there to come up with greater alerts when, you know, people go missing, especially children?
There are always efforts being made, especially as technology continues to advance, Vinnie. One that was just announced, and I know that she's been working on it for over a decade right now, Steph Copeland with Media for the Missing, just got approval to have missing children's alerts being posted in kiosks at malls throughout the countries and convenience stores and all these different areas. And I just learned about an hour or two ago that now Ireland wants this, and it's a worldwide movement that's taking place. So congrats to Steph. I know she's been working on this for over a decade. There are regional alerts that should be set up, but it's really important that we don't get too inundated. And here's why. Amber Alerts work because they're only utilized based on specific criteria. 2,000 to 5,000 children disappear every single day. 75 to 85% of those cases return home within a 24 to 48 hour period. So we cannot inundate our systems with too many missing children's alerts, or people will begin to tune them out. I know that sounds crazy, but it's just the truth. People will become too overwhelmed and start to not understand or stop understanding the urgency of the situation. So if we can pare this down to a zip code, if we can pare this down to a county-wide radius, a regional effort, and we only tag essentially or notify those in the specific region, then I think absolutely these alerts can be beneficial and they can be more effective, but we have to make sure to balance that with not drowning out too many alerts so that the public doesn't tune them out altogether.
Yeah, and you know what? Zuckerberg and Facebook, they know where we all live. They know everything about us. I mean, to me, that's a natural place. And they on their own should take the initiative because they have all that information on us. And so do the guys who make these phones, by the way. You got all the billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. How about doing some, a little bit more good? A little bit more good, a little less censoring, a little more good. Sorry. Mike King, there's some new billboards. We were just looking at them of Cody Bixby. That's always an old-fashioned way, but it's a very effective way, I think, to get those images out there. We've got billboards now that can rotate pictures and everything. And there's Cody finally on some billboards.
Yeah, this is a great example of how media can be used. And the beauty of a billboard, frankly, is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people will pass by that, and some day after day. And it takes advertising multiple visits for us to remember something and for it to really sink in. I'm just a few blocks away from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Vinnie. They spend a great deal of time helping law enforcement in cases like this. They step up, they get information out, they do age progression on children if time passes that's much too long. But I'll tell you what, this is exactly right. We need to kind of have almost a geo wave that's created when a child becomes missing, that it moves in the amount of time and the intelligence that supports that the child might be moving. There's no sense putting an Amber Alert out statewide in the first few moments of a child missing. But it is important to get it out immediately. We do it for weather reports. Why on earth isn't the media stopping everything right then and saying a child was just abducted? But then some of this responsibility falls back on law enforcement, who has to make the call. They have to say it's an Amber Alert and it needs to be released. And sometimes police are reticent to do that. But I'll tell you what, I gotta tip my hat to this police chief, because I've seen something in this case that I haven't seen in a lot of cases that we've talked about on this show, Vinnie, and that is a police chief who is empowering and embracing the community to help him search. Just a few years ago in this very city, a child disappeared and police wouldn't use the help from the public. I think they learned a lesson, because they're putting these people to work, and people want to help. They want to do exactly what you've been talking about.
Absolutely. And this is a chief who, the community at first was kind of going after the chief here because of the Amber Alert situation, that this case didn't qualify for an Amber Alert, and there was a little scene at a public meeting. Let me show you what happened.
I've reached out to a number of these folks and made sure that they were aware of, from the very first day, what was happening.
Amazing composure by the chief, but he went through the ringer there. And again, it's people not understanding the Amber Alert criteria, but at the end of the day, the chief was able to ride through that and stay focused on his job, Mike, which is finding this little guy.
Exactly. I mean, what restraint, and that is the cool thing about our country, is that someone can go in and disrupt a meeting like that and not be thrown to the ground. It's, in my opinion, inappropriate way to get across the point. But hallelujah, we have a country that allows someone to do that. And then leaders that are sitting in the saddle that aren't shaken by that and allow them to do their thing and then get back to business, which this chief has said over and again, and including during times when they've had problems with this case and things that the investigators have done, where he's said these distractions are stopping us from bringing this little tyke home.
Eric, I want you to take a listen to the chief again here talking about his focus and his thoughts about, who is suspicious in this case.
Mr. Bixby is the only person that we've found evidence against to indicate we need to continue to pay attention to him in order to find out where Cody Bixby might be and what may have happened to him. Nothing that occurred has shaken my confidence surrounding whether or not we've paid attention to the right person or whether or not we've missed some key detail. We have not.
Erica, there's the chief. I mean, it seems pretty focused on dad.
I have sat across from investigators early on in investigations where they have said, this is the person we are looking at. Do not waver. We will follow all of the secondary and tertiary tips to make sure that a thorough investigation is done, but please focus all efforts right here. They know things that the public just doesn't know. And they're not going to share those things to preserve the integrity of the investigation, clearly. But when a law enforcement official comes out and makes such a bold statement, it is because they have irrefutable evidence of some sort that indicates and points to that particular person. And that's where all eyes should be. It will close this case faster. It will hopefully bring a resolution to bringing Cody home quicker. And God bless that community, because I'll tell you, Vinnie, I was one of those people 12 years ago, and you are looking at the next generation of victims advocates, missing persons advocates, and up-and-coming private investigators.
Erica Morris, Mike King staying with us. When we come back, we're going to open up tonight's unsolved case file, and this is one that goes back to the early 60s. 16-year-old girl home, alone, strangled, stabbed 40 times. But there are clues, there are suspicious people, and some potential answers out there. Who murdered Beverly Jarrows when we come back?
There's cash back in everything you buy.
It is time to open up tonight's unsolved case file. This story comes to us from Cleveland, Ohio, back in 1964. Tom Livingston from WEWS in Cleveland has more.
A small bungalow on Thornton Avenue in Garfield Heights was where Beverly Jarrows was killed, brutally stabbed to death. Jarrows, 16 years old, a student at Marymount High School, was to go shopping with friends. A Christmas break shopping trip she never made.
Somebody got a hold of Dad at work, and Dad came home and discovered the pretty bad crime scene.
There were no signs of forced entry. In this film from 1964, investigators invite our news cameras into the scene. Her upstairs bedroom, where Beverly was murdered, stabbed repeatedly. No weapon found, but on the scene, a rope used to tie her up. County Coroner Sam Gerber made a rare public call for help.
And the clouds of fear and anxiety hovering over this community bring me to you.
Probably literally thousands of tips came in.
Among the tips, people, for whatever reason, falsely confessing to the crime. Investigated and dismissed. The trail grew cold.
Through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they essentially followed up on what they could, and, unfortunately didn't come up with the right answer.
Chief Sackett grew up in this town, joined its police force in 1983. In the early 2000s, as a detective, he and a colleague used DNA testing to try to find Beverly's killer.
The coroner's office still had all the evidence. So there was some preliminary DNA testing done, and that didn't help us out.
The lead investigator, long since retired, met with Sackett and his partner.
He had his opinion of who he thought the suspect was, and, through the years just didn't have the evidence to prove or disprove it.
Suspects, some of whom are still alive today. Garfield Heights residents, they have their theories of what happened in this house. Beverly's father lived in this house until his death in 2012. Her sister and mother moved away long ago. Still in Ohio, waiting for that call from Chief Sackett.
Mom and the sister deserve an answer. That kind of keeps us going.
50 years later, a young girl, her life unlived. The question today, as it was in 1964, who killed Beverly Jarrows?
We don't have an answer yet, and we're not giving up.
Maybe someone said something. You heard something. I don't think you witnessed anything, but 216-475-5686. That is the number for the Garfield Heights Police Detective Bureau. All right, let's bring back in our guest, still with us, private investigator Erica Morse and retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, Mike King. And joining us now by phone in Cleveland, Ohio, is an author who is currently working on a book about the Beverly Jarrows case, Dr. James Badal. And in Cape Coral, Florida, crime scene investigator for the Cape Coral Police Department and author of Evidence of Murder, Lisa Black is with us. She's also written an article on this case. Great to see everyone. Lisa, I'll start with you. What struck you about this case?
Well, it seems very unusual that it would not be solved. I mean, it's a nice suburb. It's a, clean-cut young girl, middle of the day, broad daylight. It's really hard to imagine that something like this would go this many years without a solution.
Dr. James Badal, I know that you have looked into this. You have turned over every piece of evidence. What are your thoughts about the murder of Beverly Jarrows?
Well, it was clearly a rage killing. I have been permitted to see the photographs of her body, both on the crime scene and in the morgue before the autopsy was performed. And this was no momentary eruption of anger. This was sheer, premeditated rage.
And Dr. Badal, is it my understanding, is it correct that there was a phone call by someone who gave a false name that happened shortly before the murder?
Well, we're not entirely sure it was a false name, but a man who identified himself as Steve Stackowitz called, and Beverly wrote down a note saying that he had. We assume that the note was for her father, or that the call was, but we're not sure.
And how about the talk through the years about Beverly Jarrows having a stalker?
That is possible. There is clear indication that she. I don't know if I don't know if I go so far as to say she was being stalked, or whether she realized it, but she clearly realized that something was not right.
Lisa Black, another part of this case is, didn't a friend of hers was supposed to come over her house that day, or actually did go to the house at some point?
Yes, she was supposed to go shopping, I believe, with a friend of hers. They were off school for the holiday break, and the friend did come over at a certain time and had knocked on the door, and getting no response, she finally went away. And we don't know if Beverly was dead at that moment or being killed.
Erica Morse, this is 1964. You know, I look at the clips that WEWS has of the investigators on the crime scene is amazing. I think I even saw the blood look like it was still on the floor near the bed. What are your thoughts here so many years later, Erica? Are you shocked that that the case hasn't been solved, and that no one has even said anything through all the years, or confessed to it on their dying last breath or something?
Well, deathbed confessions do happen, which gives me hope that perhaps this killer is still alive. I'm really glad that Dr. Badal said that he's not convinced that the name was fictitious, because neither am I. I've done some digging on that name, and there was a name or two matching that in Ohio back in '64. And I think that needs to be more thoroughly investigated. The coroner made statements in this case about Beverly fighting back, extensively fighting for her life, which tells me that there's probably a plethora of evidence that could be retested with today's technology. Absolutely no offense to local law enforcement, because I think they are 100% dedicated to solving this. But I would love to see a Cheryl Mack or a Billy Jensen, Cold Case Institute, Project Cold Case, these organizations that do an amazing job honing in on solving cold cases. You know, we just had a Dixie Mafia triple homicide solved a few weeks ago because of a confession in jail. This is not an unsolvable situation. It's putting more resources towards it. And I think getting a group or an org dedicated to going over those forensics and retesting everything could make or break a solve in this case.
Mike King, host of Profiling Evil, another example of evil here. A rage-killing, beautiful young girl has her whole life to live and doesn't get to live it. But as Dr. Badal described, seems like it was a crime of rage.
You know, I feel like I'm sitting in one of my classes when I was learning how to profile criminal behavior, Vinnie, and I look at this case a little differently. A profiler would take all of this physical evidence and set it on a shelf for a short season and look at the case from a behavioral perspective. And I come back with a little different opinion. Number one, I think that this child was a target, and I call her a child even though she was a young woman. But I think she was a target of this aggression, that it was very focused. There's evidence that would support that the bindings that were used originated with the offender. They weren't picked up at the home. This phone call before and having a name written down could have been a perfect guise to say, is your father at home, to just reaffirm that this person is alone in the home. There was jewelry delivered to this young woman a few days earlier, too, that isn't talked about very much. But again, very focused, because these people fantasize that they're having some kind of relationship, even though the victim doesn't even know that this is going on. The amount of overkill is really interesting, but It's interesting that there's not a lot of disruption in this house until they get to the bedroom. So did this individual get through the front door as an invited guest or invited in, because there's no force entry that's appearing there, and all of the brutality is appearing up in that bedroom? Did something go wrong once they got up there? I think there's a lot of telling information that can come forward. And frankly, I think police know who did this. I think it's just one of those cases where they're trying to get all of the pieces together because they may only have one shot at prosecution.
Dr. James Badal, I have time for one more question. When is the book coming out so we can dive even deeper into all this?
Oh, that's a very good question. Slowly but surely.
All right. Well, make sure you let us know when it does. We always appreciate you coming on the show and appreciate your time. Lisa Black, thank you as well. Erica Morris, Mike King, we'll see you again really, really soon. Still ahead. In Yonkers, New York, a brutal hate crime caught on video. Why was this man not already locked up? We break down this case with our own law enforcement experts. And in Seattle, Washington, officers respond to the scene of an active shooter. We take a closer look during crime time. It is crime time here on Closing Arguments. Let's bring in tonight's guests. Joining me, a major in charge of law enforcement operations for the Rockdale County Sheriff's Office, K.D. Johnson. K.D. has more than 30 years of experience in law enforcement. He served in the Special Victims Unit, Gang Unit, and Intelligence Units before retiring as a precinct commander. Also with us, former police officer Lance LaRusso. Lance has over 36 years of experience in law enforcement. He has trained civilians, officers, and supervisors as a firearms and defense tactics instructor. He is certified in hostage negotiation and is the author of When Cops Kill and Blue News, and is now a practicing attorney. All right, great to have you both here. First story, this is a tough one. I'll give you a warning off the top. Comes to us out of Yonkers up in New York. We have a man yelling racist slurs, then attacking a woman. She does survive, though. Let's take a look.
The following video includes graphic content. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right, unfortunately, we're seeing way too much of this. Unbelievable. Not his first run-in with the law, by the way. How can law enforcement do something here to prevent this barrage of hate crimes that we're seeing? A lot of it in the streets of New York and other cities as well. KD, your thoughts?
You know, that was senseless there. Police officers have to get information from the public, and this is where education comes into play, because people watch things like this and they need to know, and I'm talking about witnesses and victims, they need to know how to report this. And prosecutors have got to aggressively prosecute people like this. Then in states where you may have some crime or laws not in place, we have to make sure there's legislation put in place where you can aggressively prosecute these type of people. But you know, this is senseless here, and you know, I can't even explain how someone can do someone like this. That's senseless.
67-year-old woman, and neighbors spoke. She's just a lovely woman. Lance, your thoughts tonight?
You know, the report said that he hit her 125 times. There is no reason that man should be walking the streets. And I use the term man extremely loosely. We have to recognize that when people distinguish themselves with this type of criminal misconduct, we should distinguish the punishment and make sure he is not allowed to roam the streets. And I will guarantee you within 60 days of him being charged, because he will be found, somebody will be making an excuse for his conduct. There's no excuse for this conduct.
All right, let's get to our next story from the other side of the country, from Seattle Police Department. We have police responding to an active shooter call.
911, what is your emergency? There's an active shooter on 2nd and Marion. I am not hurt. I don't know if there are people that are. Can you see this person? I did see him, but I fled the area because he was actively shooting into the street that I was driving on. Okay, can you give me a description of this male? Yes, he was white with a black cap, a black zip-up hoodie, I believe. It may have been a normal hoodie. He was on the north side of Marion in the red brick building staircase thing that's there. I can't think of what it's called. What corner was it that you said he was on Marion? He was between 1st and 2nd on Marion.
Seattle Police! We're at 31, we're on scene. We have one detained right now. Hey, Seattle Police! I got somebody else. I got another police out there. Hold the air, hold the air. Stop here. 200 block of Marion. We have one detained on the north side of the street. One is proned out right now. Standing by for units. You two, back up. Get out. Please, do not. Hey, drop the gun. Put it down. Drop the weapon. Put it down. Put your hands up. Hands up. You guys right there? Please. Yep. Put your hands up. Drop it now. Drop it. Don't do it. Don't. Hey, don't do it, bud. Don't do it. You have less lethal? No. It's less lethal. Don't do it. No. I'm going to tase him. I can get him from here. No, you can't get him from here. Seattle Police, put it down now. Drop the weapon. Mary 31, he's trying to shoot himself in the head now. He's trying to shoot himself in the head. Put it down. Put it down now.
Extremely dangerous, volatile situation. How was it handled? What did we just see? Lance LaRusso, I'll begin with you.
You know, one of the first things that we saw is that officers are running to the scene. They're running towards the danger, and they are putting themselves in the way and keeping the public away. This is exactly what this debate over warriors versus guardians. These are warriors who showed up in a city where people have been defunding the police. And I'm sure that they were praying for them to be there. They did everything right. They contained it. They drew his ire, if you will, and more importantly, his attention. They did everything they could to try to get him to give up. And sadly, that was apparently not his decision to go quietly.
KD Johnson, this has got to be a real difficult situation for officers as they respond. You've got an active shooter. You're right out there on a street corner. What are your thoughts?
You know, I have to agree with Lance. These officers, they performed superbly. When these things happen, they're not pretty. So your training has to come into place. You want to get in a situation where you're at a tactical advantage. And as you can see from the film, you had officers up on top of the carport there, and you had officers also getting behind cover and concealment. That's what you want. And you want to try to establish some type of communication, but in situations like this, where they are going downhill very fast, you have to take what you get. And unfortunately, it ended this way, and it appeared that the gentleman took his own life. So there was a mentally disturbed type person there, which we run into a lot. And in Seattle, that's a lot of that going on in that state.
Absolutely. And Lance, one final follow-up on this situation. It's a public street. You know, what has to be done to alert folks who may be in the area to get them out of harm's way? How do you do that while still trying to control a suspect?
Well, 911 has some programs where they can text out. I know I teach at a university, and there's always responses going out. Hopefully, people will clear the street. But I'll tell you, you know, as we're sitting here and talk about this is the nightmare of law enforcement, that you're doing everything to contain this person, and you've got 40 people who are trying to videotape it and not taking cover. And that's a big problem that we've seen. And now those officers have to take care to keep those people from being injured, when if they just got off the street and took cover, it would be a safer situation.
All right, KD Johnson, Lance LaRusso staying with us. When we come back, we've got more crime time. We've got some video coming to us from down in Florida involving a drone that is used to help track down a suspect. That is next.
3-4.
Welcome back to our Crime Time segment. Still with us, KD Johnson and Lance LaRusso. Final story tonight comes to us from the state of Florida, Volusia County Sheriff's Office, always busy down there. An armed suspect taken down with the help of a drone.
Good. Who's got the key? Knock that window. There's a light on.
Hello, Sheriff's Office. Sheriff's Office, come out with your hands up. Sheriff's Office, come out with your hands up. Sheriff's Office, come out with your hands up.
Swing around, hold it. Someone out back? Sure. All right, hold it. You take it back. I got the front. Go with Muzzy. Go with Muzzy. Go with Muzzy.
Hey, Nicholas.
Hands up! Put your hands up! Put your hands up! Put your hands up! Face away from me! Put your hands up! Face away! I'm in contact! Get on the ground! Get on your knees! Get on your knees, okay? Yes, get on your knees! Lock your hands behind your head! Stay right there!
Have him walk to you. Have him walk to you.
Get up! Walk backwards! Walk backwards! Walk backwards! Stop! Stop right there, okay? Lift up your shirt all the way. Spin around for me, okay? Spin all the way around. All right, here, you're good. Walk backwards, face away from me. Walk backwards, slower. Walk backwards, walk backwards, walk backwards. Get on your knees. Get on your knees, lock your arms again.
On top of your head.
All right, thanks, man. Hey, down here. Appreciate it. He's in custody.
All right, how common is drone use in law enforcement right now? Because I tell you, it's becoming very common in news gathering. I mean, it's a way to see things that we don't normally see. KD?
You know, you can launch a drone fairly quickly. Helicopters are ideal, but when you can get a drone with camera footage like this, the technology is great. So we use them all the time, and we're even starting to use them with our SWAT teams, where you can open a door and put a drone inside of a residence. So that drone technology is advancing, and it's great. They're used all the time now.
Yeah, this is a big development. Lance, your thoughts about the use of drones?
You know, they're being used for patrol, they're being used for special ops, they're being used for hostage situations. And a couple of things that people don't realize, you know, people say, well, they're loud, you know, the helicopter is loud. How can the police ever, you know, monitor somebody? But there's a concept called auditory exclusion that happens with people when they get under tense situations. A lot of these folks never even know the drone is hovering over them. They can't hear it. Auditory exclusion just blocks it out. So you have officers being able to plot the path of an individual, as opposed to doing one of the most dangerous things a law enforcement officer can do, and that's get into a foot chase in an unfamiliar area with a great deal of obstructions. And I have to tell you, kudos goes to this officer who took him down. She is so calm. I can tell you that her heart rate's probably about 180 beats per minute, but she's professional, she's calm, and she does her job and protects the community.
Absolutely. KD, your thoughts, if they didn't have the drone here, how much more difficult would this have been? And do you think there was a chance that he could have gotten away temporarily?
You know, looking at this from the air, yeah, I think he would have gotten away, because everyone, it seems, they were at the front and the side of that residence. So when he ran out, they didn't know. So the drone operator had to alert them as to the direction this perpetrator was traveling. So I think he probably would have gotten away, or gotten close to getting away from them. It would have taken a while to catch him.
But they always do catch him in the end. They always do. All right, KD Johnson, Lance LaRusso, thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your insight and expertise and your valuable time. We'll see you again really, really soon.
Take care.
All right, folks, when we come back, we're not done yet. We're not done. I'm going to need your help, okay? I ask for your help every night. It's because there are some children who are missing and want to bring them back home. Be right back.